If I may again, good evening one more time. If I may again to ask to raise your hands, those ones who know what soft Tehnika is producing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Thank you. So I will, then it means it's a bit less than 50%. It's way above average. So normally in the audience, it's something like 10% know what we do. We are designer and manufacturer of professional microwave radios. And this is product for professional use. Most of our customers are mobile operators, internet providers, utilities, local government, militaries, everyone who wants a high-speed radio connection between 2 points. So when you drive along the road, you do see those dish-like antennas on the mobile mast. So when it's pretty common situation to see those masts along the roads, right? So you see those big dishes on those masts. Our radios are attached to those dish, and the next dish is sitting on the next mast. So typical hops are somewhat starting from 1 kilometer and can go up to 100 kilometers. So, and we are in professional business. So we do really all R&D and manufacturing here in Latvia, and we do sell our products in more than 130 countries in the world. So therefore, my America, or my experience of America, is mostly coming through that material world. I would imagine this is a little bit different from internet people, internet company, or different kinds of intangible products like software services, etc. But still. And we are in the United States for more than 5 years. We do have an operational office, which is sales office, warehouse, support. So we currently, but it is pretty small, so we are currently employing 6 persons there. One more disclaimer. So everything what I will say now is my personal view. It doesn't reflect any of my companies or my, Chamber of Commerce or other entities I'm working with. And one more thing is I'm going to talk more about challenges. So the agenda of that was opportunities, challenges, problems, real life, etc. I do think that representative of U.S. Embassy did a great sales job, right? So, and this is what they do. They sell their country, to the customers, and we are the customers here. And as those of you who work in IT certainly know that in the company there are 2 kinds of people. Ones are selling dreams, and most of others are fixing nightmares, right? I'm a little bit of that nightmare side, and I must say that Viesturs have stolen a lot of my show. Talking.
That's why I asked the Ingrid to put me before you.
Yeah, it's smart ass.
Sure.
Yes, first statement is true. US is really huge market. It's rich market, and business certainly is there. Period. So you theoretically can sell millions of millions, whatever product in that market. But it's not a single market. There are 50 states, and in very many perspectives, those states are even more different than countries in the EU. Only common thing, and which is good, is English language, right? For sure.
And the dollar.
And
America.
sorry?
And the dollar.
And the dollar is here as well, right? But yes,
the euro then.
And that's right. And the dollar, and the DHL and UPS and any other couriers, which is really great. But when you drill down to the local sales taxes and much worse local employment rules and labor unions and specific permits, it's nightmare. Believe me. So it's like it's not showstopper, but don't be surprised that when you are really down on the field, there are much more challenges coming from the fact that really each of every state have pretty big autonomy in the United States. Right? What is or how is if someone asks, and it's pretty usually that in conferences like that, people are asking me, can you make a description of certain market or certain customers or certain people? Ooh. And if I may say in one sentence, what is main characteristic of Americans or American customers? Over the years, I think I came to some, it was difficult, but I came to some description. And my best description is that Americans see the world in black and white. Which means that in no other country I got so many compliments and sentences like, your presentation were marvelous, your products are beautiful, it's simply smashing, they love you from first second they see you. And then their mood can switch in 1 second in complete garbage, shit, disaster, whatever. We never ever got from any country but the United States persons calling our nice customer service, we think, and bomb them with swear words, in the half an hour constantly. Right? It's black and white, and it can switch like half an hour this, half an hour this. Be sure this is something, and I think it's coming from, especially from that new online world that and retail, that all of big retailers in the United States are very dependent from public opinion of customers, and customers don't hesitate to bomb them in any ways in Facebooks, Twitters, or whatever. And retailers are very afraid of that. And therefore, they are doing, it's very easy, to buy your shoes in a reasonable supermarket. Then find out some minor, defect in them. Go back to that supermarket and demand immediately next pair of shoes for half the price. They get it. And they are treating you in the same way, also in the business. It's very easy that you are late for whatever reason, for instance, for the delivery of your radio for 1 or 2 days, and they immediately demand 50% discount because that dispatch team was already there, or somebody was hired, and they are taking big losses, and therefore you are obliged to compensate that. So those talks are rounding over and over and over again. What to do? The more you will give them, the more they will demand next day. If you will not give them anything, you are bloody foreign bastard, that are selling you crap radios and having worst service in the world. So there is no one answer. You should be very careful in balancing that. But be aware of that demand for huge discounts or, all sorts of damages and all sorts of, harm what you did with your action should be compensated in a fair way. The best way, just give them what they want for free. And this is getting worse over the years. This is at least our experience. With your long-term customers, and the best way to deal with them is that to wait until they will first be late with their payment. And they are always late. Means that your payment terms, as Vestor started 14 days. In our case, it's usually between 30 and 60 days. they are always late. And they try to apply carefully, with no offense, the same medicine to them. Start to tell to them that, you missed the salaries payout and now you are having huge claims from your customers. And then you are on the same page. Right? Then the next time you are late, they start to think, about that balance of things. But be aware, so there is no country in the world with that sort of behavior. Second really big issue for us was that visa issue. And yes, you need a local presence. If you are serious and if you are in real world, if you are not in some sort of software, but if you are in real goods or services, you have to have a local presence. And then, of course, there are two ways: either to hire someone from US or send your own people. Viesturs already meant about that industry veterans. I fully support him in skepticism about that sort of people. Of course, you can find a gold mine also. It's possible, but general average is very poor performance. Another issue is that if you think about hiring someone in US who understands at least a little about international business, who understands at least a little about something which is beyond the borders of the US, you start to think about salaries in excess of $100,000 a year. There's no way to get the cheap. No way. And then you end up with trying to put your own people on the ground because they know your factory, they know local relations, etc. And then you run into L1 visas. It took for us a little bit less than 2 years. We spent something like $20,000 on US attorneys until we get done. So we got something like 2 or 3 times rejected. We were going rounds and rounds and rounds, preparing something like, I don't know, between 500 to 1,000 useless papers, just to prove that those persons have certain specifications which would be otherwise difficult to buy from local US labor market. And this is really one big showstopper. And I am very curious to see what will be the success of NICE 4 or 6 of Coboc guys who are now planning to relocate to Denver. It's really so. If I would ask to say one message to U.S. officials, then I would say that L1 visa issue is the worst. Then banking checks. Yeah, that's true. America pretty much. There are 2 Americas, right? It's 2 ways. One lives in 1950s, and another one lives in Facebook, and they hardly talk between each other. And you have to. And this is really for us. It's extremely difficult to realize that seriously. If you ask someone that, hey, could you just wire me that money via internet bank, they don't understand you. They don't. Check is it. And yes, you have to open your local bank account. It took for us 3 months. Endless paperwork again. I don't know. You were maybe more lucky, but it took for us because
I had to go there myself. That's if you do it by mail, then it takes ages. I just went there and sat there, and they were not able to throw me out, so they opened my bank.
Okay, but
it was with Morgan Chase.
Yeah,
it's a
but
big
it can
one.
but it can be a real issue. It can be a real issue, just as a simple thing as opening a bank account. Another pretty big issue is that, and this arose recently with Chase Bank stopped processing US dollar payments to Latvian banks. And suddenly you jump into a situation which was somewhat like 4 or 5 years back, that now to get the money out of US, you get a number of different intermediary banks, which each of them are taking some small part of payment, ranging between $10 to $50 from your pay. And regardless that customer is stating, you have to check that box in your payment order, who is paying charges. And so it's normal that charges are paid by customer, right? Regardless of that, you normally every day with every payment get somewhat like $10 to $50 less. And it takes months to sort it out. And this is like my message to U.S. officials that it's going to be really real problem. This is unregulated because one can say this is just banking problem. This is nothing to do with any of government entity. But I do think that Chase Bank at the end of the day sees their business with Latvia based on somewhat with some information or mild pressure or whatever message coming out of official circles. So, but payment is a problem, and you have to deal with that. If you are getting somewhat like 10 payments a day, it ends up in huge sums at the end of the year. Right? You should be aware of that. Payments, few sentences about employment, how to start up. Of course, we didn't start with L1 visa application when we started to think about US business. We started with trade shows, we started with direct sales, we had the first customers, but after a while we realized that really without the local presence, it's almost impossible to grow bigger. So we started to think about structure of the local office. And yes, we started firstly with local representatives. First threat is, let's say, like simple advice, don't hire business consultants. It's not going to work. Only thing they sell...
It's global advice, not only for the US.
They sell themselves. So it's the best short, description of business advisor. It's a person who borrows your watch to tell you a time. It tells you wrong time and forgets to return the watch. And having said that, the most reasonable setup is to try to make a deal with profit sharing. Means that you hire a representative who gets maybe bigger percentage from the sales as normal in the case of success. But you pay zero or in worst case scenario some minimal fixed fees. We worked about a year with that, but then again we realized that people who are doing that sort of business, it's their business. They are not your employees. They have somewhat between 5 to 10 companies like yours, and they are switching those companies. They are looking from someone from the next entrant who is ready to pay a higher price for their services. And in most of the cases, they have the same limited structure of customers or their, customer base or colleague base or whatever, to whom they try to sell your product. Which means that once you end up relations with them, they go to your next competitor and go to the same customers now trying to beat you out with that new product from the same customer. It's normal business. It's nothing wrong with that, right? But this is their business. This is not your business. And therefore, the sooner you... But this is very great thing to start. This is great way to understand, is there any traction at all for your products in that market? And you must be pretty smart and quick in making those decisions when to switch from that representative model to your own office. And last, what I want to say, because we are running already out of schedule, you were too long, Vestors. You were stealing all the time.
You didn't have to repeat it.
No. You know, practice makes perfect. You know, and I think the last what I have to mention, but again, this was our experience and our thinking, is that, of course, the most of U.S. business is done on the coast of both oceans, right? You either are on the West Coast or in the East Coast. Either you are in New York, Boston, or you are in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and that. If you are a small company, startup or even SAF is small company, if you look at size of U.S. market. So we were not able to pay for 2 offices, and therefore, after some thinking and playing with the numbers, listening to people, we decided with pretty logical decision. We set up an office in the middle. We set up an office in Denver, in Colorado, which is now pretty famous for their most relaxed some sort of laws, right? But Denver was also very nice in 2 other aspects. This is one of major hubs for United Airlines. Means that you can get there. You can get from there, and it lands up a number of international flights, direct flights from Europe. And you can get to any place in the United States within 3 hours, reasonably priced. So you can pretty easy travel to all the places in the U.S. The same applies, and it's also a pretty big railway hub and also a road hub, which means that also in terms of physical goods, you have equal time and equal money spent on all of those deliveries. And it's way cheaper than the large coastal cities in terms of office space, all services, and also on local people if you want to hire, starting from lawyers. You need some local lawyers. You need some local accountants. We do accounting from Latvia, but we are not so brave to file a tax return, for instance. So we hire a local accountant for all tax issues, because it's really extremely complicated to do all that paperwork in the U.S. So, but yeah, in the Midland and Colorado, Denver was our pick, and so far we are very happy about such a decision.